rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Boy, everybody's sitting here complaining about the weather. I got to tell you, this year, the only complaint that I have is we didn't get any snow. I mean, yes, we got a few trace, like we're talking light dustings, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, my folks down in Florida, they're like, oh, it's 80 degrees here today, and it'll be 40 tomorrow. Well, I just commented to Mrs. Whiskey, hey, we got up to 53 today. Oh, and then, of course, I am so over the weather. Wore shorts yesterday. Today is random snow squalls. Okay. Well, and another one of my coworkers at my other job showed us an image of, well, they got almost 2 feet. Of course, he lives in Wisconsin up by Green Bay, but hey, whatever. Anyway. Weather's just nuts. It's that climate change, folks. Climate change. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and get things kicked off tonight. We have a new pledge. That's right. We have a new submission. The man is over there. The man is over there in the green room. He's getting himself ready. Goes by the name Jarhead 13 on Rumble. If everybody would please stand, if you are of mind, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me, and follow along with Jarhead 13 as he recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, I thank you, Jarhead 13, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. I just noticed that was relatively low. How did that work for you guys? Did you guys hear that? Were you guys able to hear that well enough? Otherwise, I'll go and I'll amp it up a little bit next time. Anyway, if you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and attach it to, okay, yeah, it was low. That's what I thought. All right, I will go ahead and get that amped up. That's my fault, not his. Not his fault, my fault. Anyway, so if you want to get your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, attach it to an email, send it off to me, and you can send it to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online, like Jarhead did. And I'll get you into the rotation. I have 22. I have 22 of these things now. I'm an even number. So 22 of these things now. And all you have to do, obviously, is I just got to get 4 more to hit to 26 for the end of 2026. So if you haven't done it, please do so. I'd like to get 26 for the end of 2026, by the end of 2026. And if you do it on your phone, you can use the share option. That's SHARE, share option. And send it off to me at fans at AmericanPerspective.online. All right, I am wearing one of the fantastic shirts from this grand company known as theflagshirt.com, and they, of course, are our headline sponsor today. And they have currently a patriotic sale, Patriotic Heroes sale going on, where they are offering up to 60% off select patriotic styles. So go and take a look. And seriously, go and take a look. Check out their men's, women's, kids, made in the USA accessories, all in the fantastic red, white, and blue. You can see the Liberty Bell shirt right there. The Liberty Bell We the People shirt right there on the guy in the picture. Anyway, you can go and take a look at that and all their styles, including their America's 250 catalog that they have for the America 250th anniversary. And if you want to order $75 or more, you will receive free shipping, but I know not everybody can do that. First of all, you get all the 60% off. Maybe that's cool, but you can all of a sudden get, wow, I mean, you could get up to 60% off select patriotic styles. You could order up to $75 or more and get free shipping on top of it. Talk about a steal, but you know what? I know not everybody can do that. I know not everybody can afford $75 at once, or maybe you just don't want $75 worth of product. Maybe there's only one or two shirts or accessories that you like. So I'm going to help you out. And thanks for the hint, 3 Chevy. I'm going to go ahead and help you out by, if all you have to do is head on over to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online, and you'll be presented with a coupon code. That coupon code you can copy and paste into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get $5 off your order on American Perspective. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, where you'll be presented with a coupon code. Copy and paste that coupon code into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com, and you'll get $5 off your order on American Perspective. That's theflagshirt.com, where you can get yourself patriotized. All right. Well, I think Trump, well, at least the Trump administration, is getting tired of the fact that you have all of these CBS, ABC, NBC, MSLSD. Oh, they no longer exist. They're now MS Now. And any other of these news conglomerates that are out there. Well, the FCC chairman has finally warned them, hey, you idiots who are peddling fake news, you need to clean up your act or you're going to lose your license. Now, for those of you that don't understand, they have, for broadcasting purposes on specific television channels and radio channels like terrestrial radio, terrestrial television, you have to have a broadcast license because that is a specific frequency that is just yours and yours alone. And you cannot, in any other sense of the word, step on anybody else's frequencies. Like if I were to try and set up a television statement, a pirate radio station or television station, I wouldn't be able to utilize any of the frequencies that are already in existence because that would be illegal. So, basically what's happening here is in order to get a broadcast license, you also have to comply with all sorts of rules and regulations. Things like no cussing. Things like no nudity. Things like no gore. Not Al Gore, but no gore as in bloody kinds of things, bloody and sick and disgusting stuff. No, child mutilation or any of that kind of stuff. So anyway, the point here is that when the idea was to make it so that the broadcast news stations would be the arbiters of truth. And that's why they can get sued because, again, they're a publisher, not a platform. So as a publisher, they are, shall we say, held to a higher standard when something goes on to their networks. That's why things like, oh, you know what happened to CNN and things like that. When the, what was that one kid, Nicholas Sandman, I think, when he was disparaged in the CNN clips and things like that. So all of that stuff, I mean, you basically have to essentially make sure that you vet your sources, vet it again, vet it over and over and over again. And then, you know, okay, sometimes things happen, they make mistakes. But if you're flat out peddling fake news and propaganda, which is what fake news is, if you're flat out peddling that stuff, well, FCC don't take kindly to that kind of stuff. And you could be looking at some potential things up to losing your licenses. And Brendan Carr has now had it with these people. See, in this particular case, there was a thing, a incident that happened over the weekend, I guess, that was talking about an intentionally misleading headline about 5 tanker planes being supposedly struck down at an airport in Saudi Arabia and are of no further use. The base itself, according to Trump, was hit days ago, but the planes themselves were not struck or destroyed. 4 of the 5 had virtually no damage, already back in service. 1 had slightly more damage, but will be in the air shortly. None were destroyed or even close to that, but the fake news, according to Trump, said it in the headlines. Well, he put out, Brendan Carr put out on a tweet, he's like, broadcasters that are running hoaxes and news distortions, also known as fake news, have a chance now to correct course before their license renewals come up. The law is clear. Broadcasters must operate in the public interest, and they will lose their licenses if they do not. And frankly, changing course is in their own business interests, since trust in legacy media has now fallen to an all-time low of just 9%. And our ratings disasters. The American people have subsidized broadcasters to the tune of billions of dollars by providing free access to the nation's airwaves. It is very important to bring trust back into the media, which has earned itself the label of fake news. When a political candidate is able to win in a landslide election victory after, in the face of hoaxes and distortions, there is something very wrong. It means the public has lost faith and confidence in the media. We can't allow that to happen. Time for a change. Now, what they're calling out in particular was because of the fact that the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal were inaccurate about reporting that 5 planes had been struck down in Saudi Arabia, which they weren't. Now, keep in mind, the FCC can only do so much about the fake news, and the reason that they even have jurisdiction over the public airwaves, but not over what newspapers print or what slop cable news puts on air. So that leaves most of the major news outlets, such as CNN, MS Now, or MS Snow, because they snow you with the fake news, New York Times, Washington Post, etc., are all unaffected. So these are the national networks like NBC, ABC, CBS, and those guys aren't required to have licenses either, but their local affiliates are. So they might want to pay attention to what Carr is talking about. So, yeah. Anyway, to be honest with you, though, I mean, realistically, the best way for the American people to combat fake news and combat these companies that are taking advantage is just to shut them off, tune them out, which is exactly what's happening in terms of the ratings. The ratings are just horrible. I mean, people are starting to turn toward alternative media. People are cutting the cord. They've cut the cable cord. They're turning toward places like, YouTube, X, Rumble, for their outlets. They're watching podcasting and vodcasting a lot more. They're listening to podcasts. They're doing all these other things in the alternative media because, believe it or not, Americans are finding more truth in these people. And I'll be honest with you, the reason why they're finding more truth is because of the fact that we, and I'm putting myself in there, if I lie to you, if I give you a lie, like an outright lie, and it's extremely easily proven that it's a lie, what do you think's going to happen to even just the small number of viewers that I have? Well, they're going to go away. Because the reality of it is that in your brain, you're conditioned to think that things like ABC News, NBC, CBS, so on and so forth, you're going to think that those guys are actually the arbiters of truth, especially companies like the New York Times, the Washington Post, for as long as they've been around. They're riding on the reputation that has been built up over decades. People who are in the independent media, like myself, we don't have that. See, I have to earn your trust every single time I come on this camera. And if I sit here and tell you something that is completely obvious, then as a lie, I should say, completely obvious as a lie, then I know for a fact that you won't come back. And not that I'm trying to make this into at this point in time, into a job or anything like that, but I do have plans for this. I have plans to keep this going. I have plans to extend this. Maybe if I'm lucky enough to gain enough listenership and trust and sponsors, I can garnish this into an actual job. But my entire credibility is on the line every single time I come on the show. Every single time I'm in front of you, my credibility, my very survival in this space is based upon whether or not I can entertain you with the truth and bring value to you day in and day out as I perform this show. And so if I lose your trust, if I lose your respect, if I lose any amount and any iota of interest from you, I'm done. I'm just talking into the ethosphere. But see, ABC News, NBC News, MSLSD, that's MS Now, or any of the others, they have millions upon millions upon millions of listeners. Many of them are brainwashed to think that they are the arbiters of truth. And they're no longer the arbiters of truth anymore. Well, this announcement didn't please the Democrats. Apparently, Sunday, Trump took to Truth Social to blast the legacy media for their fake news coverage over the last 2 weeks. He said the radical left-wing press knows this full well, but continues to go forward with false stories and lies. For an example, Iran has been a long-known master of media manipulation and public relations. They are militarily ineffective and weak, but are really good at feeding the very appreciative fake news media false information. Now, AI has become another disinformation weapon that Iran uses quite well, considering that they are being annihilated by the day. You know, there's a suggestion and I don't know if this is true, but there's a suggestion that Trump may have used Tucker Carlson and Tucker Carlson's connection to Iran to set Iran's mullahs up for the initial attack in Operation Epic Fury. Now, it's totally unconfirmed. May even be, I doubt that we'll ever really know the truth. But if it is true, man, what a master class at trickery. Because apparently Tucker Carlson, I was reading this article a while ago, Tucker Carlson went to the White House, talked to Trump, and shortly thereafter, or within that same time span, was texting with contacts within Iran. That's going to be interesting, if that even goes anywhere. Yeah. So, yeah. And by the way, some of the people in the news media responded back. For an example, CNN chairman and CEO Mark Thompson issued a statement about their reporting. He said, "We stand by our journalism. Politicians have an obvious motive for claiming that journalism which raises questions about their decisions is false. At CNN, our only interest is in telling the truth to our audiences in the U.S. and around the world. And no amount of political threats or insults is going to change that." Really? Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. And I seem to recall that CNN is actually bleeding viewers because people don't like it. Well, Gavin Newsom, of course, pointed out or said on Saturday, "If Trump doesn't like your coverage of the war, his FCC will pull your broadcast license. That is flagrantly unconstitutional." You know what? I'm seriously wondering if it is. I'm seriously wondering if that is unconstitutional because, to be honest, I don't think the Constitution says anything about the broadcast airwaves. I mean, all it says is that the government can't stop free speech. But I seem to recall the Smith-Mundt Act, which was put in and deemed to be constitutional prior to Obama, that basically said, hey, you can't use propaganda machines against Americans. And yet, now, the Smith-Mundt Act got repealed by the Obama administration. And so now, yeah, I don't know about the constitutionality of the whole thing. But anyway, Senator Mark Kelly, you know, the guy that broke Title 18, Section 2387 of the U.S. Code. Yeah. He criticized these threats also, saying that when our nation is at war, it is critical that the press is free to report without government interference. It is literally in the Constitution. No. What's in the Constitution is the right to free speech. That's what's in the Constitution, the right of a free press. How is this a free press? They're utilizing airwaves that are regulated by the government. I don't know. I'm not quite sure that this is kind of the case. He did continue, Mark Kelly did, by saying this is overreach by the FCC because this administration doesn't like the microscope and doesn't want to be held accountable. Oh, Ted Lieu. Yeah, Teddy Lieu. He was very colorful in his language. He says, take your fascist shit and shove it. Yeah. I don't think that there's anything in the Constitution that says that the government needs to hand over, just like with the whole idea of a transparent government. I don't think there's anything in the Constitution that says the government has to tell the tell the press everything that they're doing. Anyway. All right. Well, we've had some challenges because of this DHS shutdown. And one of the biggest places that has been hit is, of course, the Transportation Security Administration, as well as places like the Coast Guard. But the TSA is apparently running really, really, really behind because they're on basically skeleton crews and things like that. And by the way, too, it just has a curious nature. There's some kind of question running around that, well, is the TSA constitutional? Balancing liberty and security, of course, and Ben Franklin is accredited, don't know for sure, but accredited for saying something like, for those who remove liberty in favor of security deserve neither. So there's some new questions as to whether or not this stuff is, whether or not the TSA is really constitutional. Now, keep in mind, the TSA was created after 9/11. So the Transportation Security Administration was established in the aftermath of September 11th when the hijackers seized 4 commercial airliners, used them as weapons against New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Prior to 9/11, airport passenger screening in the United States was handled by private contractors that were hired by the airlines. The standards were minimal. Passengers could carry small pocket knives. No boarding pass or ID was required to reach gates in many cases. Security was often inconsistent across airports. Now, of course, the attacks exposed these vulnerabilities as the hijackers exploited lax procedures to board flights with box cutters and knives. And keep in mind, I mean, that was the whole thing. But the question is, but kind of, I mean, let's be honest. The question is really, is it constitutional to have people screened for domestic flights? Because constitutionally speaking, we should be allowed to traverse our country without fear of any kind of, like, you know, show us your papers sort of scenario, reportedly. And that we should be able to freely pass from state to state as we do in driving without having to worry about this. I'm not really all that sure because I'm trying to think in the grand scheme of things, constitutionally speaking. And again, I'm a strict constitutionalists, that I don't seem to recall anything in regards to the U.S. Constitution requiring the federal government to do anything. I mean, the federal government is allowed by the Constitution and required by the Constitution to control interstate commerce. But can we necessarily call air travel a interstate commerce? Because unlike public transportation, and here's where the tricky stuff comes into play. Unlike public transportation, the airlines themselves are private entities. They can kick you off the plane if they don't like what you're doing or what you're saying, unlike regular public transportation. So this is a very interesting question and a very interesting conundrum. Is this something, is the TSA really and truly a constitutional entity? I think an argument can be made that it's not. And I think it's a very valid argument that can be made that it isn't. Regardless of whether or not we think that, we think that it would be needed, we think that we should need it because of what happened on 9/11. But when you look at it in terms of the plain and simple black and white, yes or no, of it being constitutional, I don't know. That's a very, very interesting question. I think a valid argument can be made that it's not. Well, regardless, 300 TSA agents have decided to quit because the Dems have refused to fund DHS. By the way, they refused to fund it last Friday, and they went away for the weekend. They went home. And they voted down the funding on Thursday. So hundreds of TSA agents are quitting their jobs as of Friday. TSA agents have been going without a paycheck for, this length of time. The White House told the Daily Wire that 300 have quit their jobs since the shutdown started. There have been longer lines, wait times at airports, and the call-outs at the agency have increased. They're not getting rich doing these jobs. They are living paycheck to paycheck, according to Ken Cuccinelli. Or Cucci, I don't know. Anyway, he's a former DHS official. So this is going on long enough. Long enough, to be honest with you. And even the airlines are starting to feel it, because even they've been saying, hey, you guys do realize, Senate idiots, you guys do realize that that the summer travel is eventually going to get impacted by this. And I do feel sad about anybody who wants to go and fly right now, because you're going to be sitting at the airport for quite some time, depending upon what's going on. Well, a bunch of airline CEOs, they joined forces and sent a letter to Congress and said, hey, get your act together and end this stupid showdown. 10 CEOs from the largest airlines joined forces to tell Congress this is enough. Yeah. Now, ICE, of course, this is where the ridiculousness comes into play. Okay? The Democrats are shutting down DHS because of the problems that they have with immigration enforcement done by ICE. Now, ICE is a part of DHS. But here's the problem. ICE is fully funded because of the One Big Beautiful Bill, while other departments are not. So essentially, ICE is still running under current funding, and the rest of the DHS is shut down. I mean, what the... Again, this is the intelligence of the Democrats. They really don't seem to get this. They don't seem to understand all of this stuff. And so, yeah. Anyway, we'll have to see what happens. But I am going to tell you this right now. Be prepared. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But first, let's talk about this wonderful morning elixir. Man, I really needed it this morning. This wonderful morning elixir known as coffee. And if you still haven't tried 1775 coffee, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped. There's a small number of kits available. In each kit, you're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, as well as the Vitality Mushroom Coffee for clean energy and laser focus that has no crash. All of these coffees are single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting the Gold Spoon Clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. You'll be receiving a frother that is strong enough not only to stir up your coffee, but also your mother-in-law's opinions. Let's face it, maybe even your mother's opinions, too, depending upon what kind of a relationship you have with your mother. You'll also be receiving a black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for just $99. This is for the ones that have been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble and are wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. Go to the numbers 1775, the word coffee, altogether, all one word, so that's 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they are gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Go to 1775coffee.com. That's 1775coffee.com / which is your question mark key, /studio, STUDIO, and grab that starter kit for that low, low price of $99. And according to G on the Couch, 1775 coffee, dark roast, that coffee is so valuable, it's been proposed as legal tender in some countries. Go to 1775coffee.com / studio and grab your starter kit today. All right. Well, get ready, folks, because Schumer's getting ready. He is. He's getting ready to shut down the Senate. What am I talking about? Well, first of all, let's talk about the SAVE Act. Now, Senator Mike Lee, has done a very good job explaining to the dumbass Senator Dick Durbin as to how the SAVE Act is actually written and works. Let's go ahead and take a quick listen to Senator Mike Lee dropping some truth bombs on Dickie Durbin.
We took great pains to go out of our way to make sure that no American would be left in the dark.
Well,
this will not cost them a dime, and no one will be excluded if they can't find their documentation.
All of us should be aware of the fact of what is required by this act when it comes to registering to vote. You have to present identification, correct? But your driver's license, which most people use in the course of business every single day, is not acceptable. What is acceptable is a passport. 50% of Americans do not have a passport. Those who want to obtain it so they can vote will pay $186 and wait 3 or 4 weeks for that to happen. Secondly, you can use a birth certificate. But any person who has changed their name as a result of a marriage or a hyphenated relationship has to find not only their birth certificate, but some correction of it to prove that they're eligible to register to vote.
I'm happy to report to my dear friend and colleague, Senator Durbin from Illinois.
Dear friend and colleague, he can't use the word dumbass dick. Anyway, let's go.
You're in luck. We've taken care of that. When you read the bill, what you'll discover is that we've made special accommodation for those who don't have documentation, for those who can't find their birth certificate, maybe their house burned down, maybe their dog ate it, whatever it is. When all else fails, if you don't have documentation establishing the information on your birth certificate or what would be in a passport or otherwise, the bill contains a provision requiring each state to allow an alternative mechanism by which someone can, by attestation, issue a sworn statement establishing the critical facts underlying their citizenship. It then puts the onus on the state to follow up on that and to determine the authenticity of it. States have access to their own records. States have reciprocity with other states and are able to achieve verification of that. So we've taken care of that problem. And so I'm sure you'll be elated to hear that. And we look forward to having your affirmative vote when we vote on the Save America Act. We took great pains to go out of our way to make sure that no American would be left in the dark.
Well,
this will not cost them a dime, and no one will be excluded if they can't find their documentation.
Did you notice at the end there where Mike Lee was just ignoring the fact that Dickie was trying to talk to him again? I mean, seriously, folks. How many people have gone and gotten a job? I mean, seriously, signed up for a job. How many people have signed up for a job? Well, you have to bring some sort of a photo ID. You have to bring your social security number. So that's 2 pieces of identification automatically that you need to bring. Has anybody filed their taxes? You have to have a social security number or other identification number to file your taxes. I mean, seriously, I don't know where these people are coming off. You have to have a photo identification, government issued identification in order to do anything when it comes to like purchasing medicine. And I don't know how many people I could ask Mrs. Whiskey. She's already told me the answer. But even she, in order to change her last name, even she had to go in order to change it on her driver's license. She had to provide her birth certificate and her marriage certificate. Hell, my company just had to verify that my wife lives with me so that she could get health care benefits. They actually were asking me whether or not, my what do they call those? My not my beneficiary, my, I can't even think of the name, the word that they use, but, the people that I wanted covered under my medical insurance, I had to supply information for them. For my daughter, it was her birth certificate. For my wife, it was our marriage certificate and a joint bank statement. I mean, seriously, how? And that's just to get, thank you, dependents. That's just to get coverage on my medical insurance. Who the hell cares who I cover on my medical insurance? I'm the one paying for it, for the most part. But no, I have to have all of these other documents in order to go and I don't get it. These people are just so goddamn dumb. They're just so goddamn dumb. My wife had to take her marriage certificate in to get her name changed on her driver's license after she got married. How simple is it to have your marriage certificate? I mean, these are important documents that you're supposed to hang on to. Okay? And as far as by the way, as far as your birth certificate actually does 2 things. It verifies your date of birth, and it also verifies your place of birth. Hello? That calls whether or not, at least under the current definition of citizenship, that just tells you that, yeah, you're born here. I mean, I don't get these folks, but we're going to find out pretty soon. Because apparently the U.S. Senate, Thune, has finally decided that he's going to bring the SAVE Act to the floor. Reportedly, let's see, when is this? It's March 15th, which would have been yesterday. So it's this week, I think, or maybe next week. And he's planning on enforcing or somehow enforcing the talking filibuster. That's right, the talking filibuster. Now, you know what's interesting is Democrat Senate hopeful who got her hopes dashed in Texas, she actually demonstrated, unwittingly pointed out how the SAVE Act is going to help our elections. Because she went on to some program, I don't know what it was, but she went on to some program and complained about the fact that, hey, Texas enforced this ID law, and all of a sudden a bunch of our Democrats were gone. They were no longer voting. Well, gee, what do you think? Let's just think about this. What do you think those Democrats actually were? Now, she was claiming, oh, no, that's a suppression. It's suppression. No, how much you want to bet those Democrat voters didn't have the appropriate ID and probably shouldn't have been voting in the first damn place? That's what I'm saying. Until proven otherwise. Anyway, let's get back to this talking filibuster thing, because a lot of people don't seem to understand what's going on. Now, the filibuster by itself is just, in terms of a historical aspect, It is a rule that is in the Senate. This is not a constitutional thing. This isn't a requirement by the Constitution. It was the Senate, starting in the 1800s, that decided that, hey, we're going to allow unlimited debate, meaning that they could debate for as long as is necessary to go back and forth on a bill or whatever, pending legislation, and that could continue indefinitely. Now, in most cases, if something is there really isn't easily decided, which, by the way, this really should be easily decided because 71% of Democrats agree that voter ID is required or should be required. 83% of overall and 89% of Republicans. So it's very popular by the American people. Why these Democrat lunatics are trying to block this is beyond me. However, all of that being said, the idea of continuous, 100% continuous debate, indefinite debate, is what has now become known as the filibuster. Now, the only way to end the debate was to either A, exhaust all discussion, all amendments, all motions on a bill, after which the Senate would then move to a simple majority and vote on the passage of the bill. And that's how the Senate actually has operated up until 1917. Well, in 1917, the Senate adopted a new rule that allowed for 2/3 of all the senators to end debate and move to a direct vote on the bill. This process is known as invoking cloture, or cloture, C-L-O-T-U-R-E. The threshold was later lowered to 3/5 of all senators duly chosen and sworn, 60 if every seat in the Senate has a sitting member. Now, today, the Senate actually operates as if cloture is the only way to do this under the rules in order to end debate and move to a vote. But this ignores the more than 100 years that they operated without it. Now, pre-cloture debate, unlimited debate, is still an option, though it's no easy feat, because the way that it works is the Senate Republicans could force Democrats to oppose bills by voting, not by voting down cloture, but by holding the floor and debating the bill under the rules of the talking filibuster until either side relents. And this is where we come into a problem. Because while the Democrats hold the floor under the Senate rules, no other business can be done. So if John Thune has the, well, we'll call them the cojones, to go ahead and put this into place, either this week or next, whichever one it is, and force the Democrats to stand up and talk for hours upon hours upon hours, then we could be looking at a Senate that is a complete screeching halt while this happens. Now, according to Senate rules, there's only 3 activities that can happen: a speech, a vote, or a quorum call. Again, no new business can be introduced while this is happening. Now, a quorum is called to establish whether or not there's at least half of them present, meaning 51 senators, which is the number required by the Constitution for the Senate to actually conduct business. So, under current practice, if the senators are not speaking or a vote is not taking place, the Senate is held in a perpetual quorum call, freezing the floor until the next vote or speech. Now, the Senate Majority Leader is the one that has the power to make a quorum call go, quote, live, which compels the senators by law to report to the floor. Now, once a quorum has been established, senators opposed to the bill have two options: to give speeches or offer motions or amendments. To do this, there need to be at least 20 opposition allies on the floor to provide sufficient second on the motion required to initiate a roll call vote. If there's fewer than 20, the bill supporters could table the amendments by voice votes. Further, supporters of the bill could prevent any amendments from receiving a vote by offering a motion to table and voting to set aside the amendment under consideration. The final option is the endless debate, which is the talking filibuster. Now, historically speaking, this is what happened in the 1965 Civil Rights Act, where the Senate was filibustered for 60 days. 60 days. Including over the weekend. So, yeah. Oh, we could be looking at a very long time before the Senate gets back on track. So anyway. And Republicans, of course, are thinking that this is going to make things a whole heck of a lot better. Now, keep in mind, once debate is over with or finished, once the Senate gets released by the Democrats, it goes directly to a majority vote, which means all they need is 51 votes to make it pass. Now, Republicans currently have a 53-47 majority, not counting J.D. Vance. And we already know that there's some Republicans, some rhino idiots that are probably going to vote against this bill because they're stupid. And so the best chance that we have out of the talking filibuster is once it ends for a 50-50 split and J.D. Vance to be the deciding vote. Yeah. Worst case scenario is we don't make that 50-50. So, yeah. And according to all of these, all of the pundits that are out there, if this does come to a talking filibuster, the Republicans are going to push to exhaust the Democrat opposition to this. So, yeah. The point being that the Democrats need to live in pain, forcing a public political process and seeing what comes out of it. So what we could be seeing potentially, what we could be seeing here, folks, is literally a repeat of the 1965 Civil Rights Act. We could be seeing that. So we're going to see. We're going to have to see what's happening. So now Senator Mike Lee, who you just heard, his intention and his goal is to keep the Democrat opposition front and center for all America to see. And this is replicating the tactic that was used to pass the 1964 Civil Rights Act. I said 1965, 1964. So, yeah. Lee has already said, what I want to try and do is maximize the period of time in which we debate it. In 1964, the Senate remained in session for 60 days and used an approach that is similar to what I think we ought to do here. So we could be seeing history repeat itself in front of us. There's a story that came out that I don't think a lot of people have noticed. I know the mainstream media hasn't noticed, but this is definitely concerning. And the reason why I say it's concerning is because whenever somebody says, hey, we closed the border, the very first border that everybody thinks of is the Mexico border. It's the southern border. Well, America's got a northern border too. And believe me, if you think that all of the pressure and all of the eyes and all of the spotlight being down on the southern border has made the northern border less covered, well, you might have an argument. This article or this information that came out, well, this could scare the bejesus out of you. I know it makes me a little nervous considering that I'm just an hour and a half away from that northern border. According to Red State, up to 700 Iranian military and government officials may actually be living illegally in Canada. And no one cares. No one cares. Canadian border authorities have identified nearly 30 suspected senior Iranian officials who they believe should be barred from remaining in the country under a federal ban, amid a widening conflict with the Middle East that could see more regime officials seek refuge. The Canadian Border Services Agency has been investigating 95 cases involving possible high-ranking members of the Iranian regime, which is up from 66 last June, according to figures provided by the agency. Of those 95, they have identified 28 people that it believes are inadmissible since senior Iranian officials were banned from the country back in November of 2022. That number is now up from 20 last year. But so far, they've only removed one official from Canada. That's it. So, yeah. And this isn't, by the way, this isn't just like run-of-the-mill illegals. The group itself is comprised of, reportedly, former cabinet members, the Iranian Republican Guard Corps, IRGC members, senior military, intelligence officers, former ambassadors, former judges, top-ranking civil servants. Now, apparently this has been a problem reportedly for years, but the rate of entry seems to have accelerated since Operation Midnight Hammer. There's a couple videos on X that are showing some of these people with all of their family members and everything else showing up at the Toronto International Airport. This could be a bit of a problem, folks. Yeah. Apparently there's a Shia cleric who was filmed at Pearson International Airport in Toronto, arriving from Iran all together with his family. And this individual has been identified already. He has recently obtained Canadian citizenship as well. Yeah. Now, of course, the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, denies the claims of 700 Iranian regime agents in Canada, noting that only 235 visas have been revoked, but only one removal has occurred. The government reiterates that 28 cases are under review, with 170 investigations ongoing, and 10,000 IRGC members are already blocked. Yeah. Yeah, this is a bit of a problem, folks. See, unfortunately, we don't really track that one very much because Canada is our, ally and our neighbor. Well, so is Mexico, but Mexico has the drug cartels, which we know are a danger. So, yeah. We will definitely have to see what happens moving forward here. Keep an eye on that Senate thing for sure, because I got to tell you, if that hits, we could be looking at a very long Senate shutdown if the Democrats have the wherewithal to continue with all of that. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel, and then hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget to give me those thumbs up or a thumbs down, or in the case of 3 Chevy, a thumb sideways across all my platforms, whether it's X, Facebook, YouTube, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.